The Galactic Council Chamber was a place designed to impress and intimidate. It was a cathedral of politics, with towering crystalline spires arching high overhead and a floor that shimmered with living light, attuned to the presence of every delegate. This hall had seen treaties signed, empires toppled, and declarations of war shouted into eternity. Yet on this day, its walls vibrated with something else entirely: confusion, outrage, and a creeping dread none dared put into words. Reports had been flooding in for weeks. The Croth Dominion, that relentless war machine, had broken yet another defensive line. Their fleets consumed resources like a black hole consumes stars, leaving shattered civilizations in their wake. Entire systems had been reduced to cinders. Every major empire had been forced to commit staggering numbers of ships to the front lines, bleeding themselves dry to stall the onslaught. The humans had remained quiet until now. Earth had always been considered a minor player in galactic politics, respected for their tenacity but ultimately dismissed as young blood, a species too new to the stars to matter in a war of such scale. They were expected to contribute, of course. Every species was expected to bring their fleets, their soldiers, their blood. So, when the announcement came that humanity would finally join the war, anticipation spread through the council like wildfire. But that anticipation soured the moment the truth was revealed. Earth had sent only one ship. The reaction was immediate and explosive. The Drakari Admiral, a towering reptilian whose scales gleamed like burnished steel, rose with fury. His claw slammed against the table so hard the crystal veins beneath it cracked. Insult! Madness! Do the humans mock us? Do they think our war is a performance, a spectacle for their amusement? We spill rivers of blood, and they send a single vessel? The Arketh, long and serpent-like, coiled in agitation. Their twin heads hissed in unison, voices sharp as razors. This cannot stand! Humanity joined the council to share in its burdens. We bled for them, defended their trade routes, gave them access to our networks, and in return they give us this, a gesture, a token. Even among the more composed delegates, unease gnawed. The Delith, who prided themselves on rationality, raised their frilled crests in agitation. A lone ship cannot sway this war. Either humanity withholds its true forces, or it plays some dangerous game of deception. The chamber erupted into chaos. Threats, accusations, and demands rang out. Some called for sanctions against Earth. Others claimed humanity's delay in joining the war had already proven them unreliable allies. The word cowards floated more than once through the air, heavy with venom, and through it all, Ambassador Kane of Earth remained silent. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, with lines on his face that spoke of age and responsibility rather than weakness. In the council chamber, he looked out of place, so small compared to the hulking forms of the Drakari or the serpentine Arketh. Yet there was a steadiness to him, an unshakable composure that slowly drew eyes in his direction. When at last he rose to speak, his voice cut through the noise like a blade. You wanted our aid. You asked for our fleet. What we sent is enough. For a moment, the council froze. The words hung in the chamber like the toll of a funeral bell. Then the laughter began. It was harsh, cruel, mocking. The very idea that one ship could be enough in a war where thousands had already been lost was absurd, beyond absurd, insulting. But Kane didn't flinch. He didn't smile, didn't rise to the bait. He simply repeated, quieter this time, but with a weight that pressed down on every being present. It is enough. No one believed him. Not yet. But a seed had been planted, buried deep in the collective mind of the council. Why would the humans say such a thing with such conviction? Was it arrogance? Bluff? Or did they know something the galaxy did not? Beyond. The Council's walls, unseen in the cold black of space, the answer drifted closer. A single Terran warship, moving into position. Its arrival would soon rewrite everything the galaxy thought it knew about power, about war, and about humanity itself. The Allied fleets, battered and broken after weeks of near-constant combat with the Croth Dominion, waited anxiously for reinforcements. Their sensor arrays were so damaged that some barely functioned. Still, when the hyperspace ripples bloomed, many dared to hope. Perhaps Earth had reconsidered. Perhaps their single ship was merely the vanguard of a larger Terran armada. The hope evaporated quickly. The scanners caught it first. One signature, one vessel. Even damaged sensors could confirm the reading. Confusion spread among captains and commanders alike. Disbelief hardened into irritation, then despair. One ship was meaningless against 200 Croth warships. It was a death sentence, not salvation. But then the vessel cleared the hyperspace rift, and the disbelief shifted into something else entirely. It was massive, larger than anything the galaxy had ever classified as a warship. Its proportions were wrong compared to standard galactic engineering. Where other empires built blocky, rigid dreadnoughts or elongated carriers, this ship was sharp, angled, and predatory. Its armor was black, not painted, but forged of some material that seemed to drink in starlight, turning it into a shifting sheen of colorless oil. To gaze at it was like staring at a void given shape. Its presence alone bent sensors out of shape. Energy readings spiked far above known thresholds. Shielding arrays flickered, just trying to analyze its power output. Ships in the Allied fleet reported instrument failures simply from being in proximity. To the galaxy's most advanced technologies, the Terran vessel was less a ship and more a paradox. The Croth Dominion reacted first. They were predators by nature, conquerors by blood. To them, the human ship was large. Yes, intimidating perhaps, but size alone had never won a war. They had annihilated dreadnoughts, crushed supercarriers, reduced planetary defense stations to molten slag. To their minds, no single vessel could possibly withstand the might of their swarm, and so they moved to attack. 200 Croth ships adjusted course, their formations tightening like a pack of wolves circling prey. Their commanders exchanged mocking laughter over the comms, broadcast openly so that even the Allied fleets could hear. Is this what the humans bring? A monument? A coffin already waiting for its dead crew? But then the human vessel spoke. Transmission, clear and cold, swept across every channel in the system. It wasn't garbled, wasn't frantic. It was precise, measured, utterly confident. Targeting confirmed. Commencing engagement. No threats, no demands, no bravado. Just the statement of fact. And then the sky ignited. Weapons unlike anything in the galaxy's collective arsenal tore through the void. Pulses of pure energy, so condensed they appeared as threads of white fire, lanced outward. The Croths, forward line, 30 ships strong, ceased to exist in a heartbeat. Their shields collapsed instantly, hulls detonating as though crushed from within. The shockwave alone scattered debris across orbits. The Dominion roared in retaliation. Missiles, plasma bursts, kinetic slugs. An avalanche of destruction surged toward the Terran ship. To any rational observer, it should have been overwhelmed. No vessel, no matter how large, could sustain such a barrage. But the human ship did not fall. Around it shimmered a barrier. Not a traditional shield, but something denser, thicker, more absolute. Every strike that reached it simply vanished. Missiles disintegrated into dust. Plasma bursts were absorbed like drops of rain into an ocean. Even the heaviest Croth cannons failed to produce so much as a flicker across its surface. It wasn't a defense system the galaxy understood. It was immunity. The Aegis, as humanity would later name it, continued firing. Each discharge of its weapons didn't just cripple ships, it annihilated entire wings. Squadrons that had fought for decades, veterans of countless battles, were erased in seconds. The Croth's overwhelming numerical advantage shrank faster than anyone could process. 2. Allied fleet, watching from afar, fell into stunned silence. For every captain who had mocked humanity's arrogance, the reality struck like thunder. This wasn't arrogance, it was inevitability. An hour later, it was over. The Croth Dominion's entire force, more than 200 ships, lay in ruins. Wreckage drifted across Veyrith's orbit, glowing with the fading embers of annihilation. Survivors were non-existent. The Dominion, for all its ferocity, had been reduced to nothing before they even understood the scale of what they faced, and through it all, the Terran warship was untouched. Not a single scorch mark marred its surface. Its barrier glowed faintly, unbroken. It moved not like a battered survivor, but like a predator barely warmed up. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy witnessed something it could not explain, could not rationalize, could not fight. A single human ship had done what countless fleets could not. It had ended the battle decisively, effortlessly. In the aftermath of the Battle of Veyrith, the Galactic Council found itself gripped by a silence so profound it was almost unnatural. The holofeeds replayed the destruction in endless loops. Croth warships vanishing under lances of impossible energy, shields collapsing as though made of paper, and the Terran vessels standing serene and untouchable amidst the storm. For a chamber accustomed to noise, shouting, hissing, clicking, roaring, this stillness was more frightening than chaos. The first to break it was the Archith delegate, both serpent heads weaving with agitation. Their forked tongues flicked, tasting the tension in the air. This is fabrication, a display engineered to frighten us. No vessel can output that much destructive force without collapsing in on itself. The humans must have altered the recordings. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The galaxy's greatest empires, each with centuries of war behind them, clung to disbelief as though it were a shield. They could not, would not, accept what they had seen. But the Drakari admiral, scarred and battle-forged, was less forgiving. He slammed his clawed hand down on the crystalline table, sending cracks spidering through the glowing surface. Enough lies! The wreckage of the Croth fleet is real. Our scouts confirm it. Entire wings erased in seconds. If this is true, then we face a power beyond comprehension. One ship should not be able to do what was done at Veyrith. Yet it has. How? That question, how, hung heavy in the chamber. The Daleth scientists, known for their cool rationality, whispered amongst themselves, their frilled crests twitching in agitation. One finally spoke aloud, their voice calm but trembling beneath the surface. Our laws of energy conservation cannot explain this. No known power core could sustain that kind of output. Even if humans discovered a new reactor technology, the heat alone should have torn the vessel apart. The words carried weight because they were not denial, but admission. The impossible had happened, and that terrified them more than any Dominion fleet. Whispers shifted to accusations. The Orath, a species renowned for espionage, hissed through their mandibles. If the humans possessed this weapon all along, then they have deceived us. Let us bleed. Let our fleets burn while hiding this monstrosity. Why now? Why reveal it only after so much loss? Others joined in, voices rising. Some called humanity cowards for waiting until the galaxy had nearly fallen. Others accused them of arrogance, using the war as an opportunity to demonstrate their supremacy. The word traitors hissed in more than one tongue, and through it all, Ambassador Kane sat motionless. The human didn't flinch under the barrage of questions. His hands rested calmly on the table, his expression unreadable. He seemed less a diplomat, and more a man waiting for the noise to pass. Finally, when the chamber reached fever pitch, he spoke. His voice was steady, unyielding, cutting clean through the storm. "We told you. One ship was enough." The chamber erupted again, but this time with fear more than anger. Kane's words weren't boastful. They weren't the laughable arrogance of a lesser species pretending at strength. They were calm, matter-of-fact, spoken as if the destruction of 200 Croth warships had been inevitable, predetermined. That was what unsettled them most. Had humanity built an entire fleet of such vessels? If so, why send only one? If not, then how could a species so young in the stars have leapt so far ahead of every other civilization? Did Earth possess secrets buried deep, technologies wrestled from ancient ruins, or weapons so terrible they had sworn never to use them? Theories spiraled through the chamber, each darker than the last. The Archeth muttered, "Perhaps it is not a ship at all. Perhaps it is some form of living weapon, something bred for destruction," the Deleth countered. "Or perhaps the humans found a way to harness singularities. That would explain the weapon's density and the absence of residual energy trails." The Drakari, always blunt, simply growled, "Or perhaps they are preparing to rule us all." And in the pit of every mind, another question festered. One few dared to voice aloud. If humanity could destroy 200 Croth warships with a single vessel, what could they do to the Council's fleets? For the first time, the Council did not feel united in victory or survival. They felt like prey. The laughter and mockery that had followed humanity's earlier claim now seemed distant, foolish, even dangerous. A creeping dread settled in. Perhaps humanity had never been joking. Perhaps they had meant every word. The council chamber had transformed into a nest of paranoia. The delegates, once so certain of their superiority, now sat coiled in unease. The air vibrated with unspoken fears. Every representative wanted answers, and all of them wanted them. From one man, Ambassador Kane, the questions came like hails of gunfire. The Orath leaned forward, mandibles clacking. "How long have you had this ship?" The Drakari slammed his claws again, eyes burning. "Is there a fleet of them? Tell us!" The Archath's two heads hissed in unison. "This is deceit! You built these weapons in secret while we bled for you!" The Deleth spoke last, voice soft, but sharper than any blade. "What is it, human? What have you unleashed into our galaxy?" Kane did not flinch. He let the storm play itself out, hands folded neatly on the table. He could feel their fear pressing against him like a physical force. When the chamber finally quieted, his voice filled the silence. "You all misunderstand. Humanity has not built a fleet. We have built one." Gasps rippled through the hall. Some laughed nervously, but none truly believed he was joking. Kane rose, slow and deliberate, and gestured toward the holographic projection above the chamber's center. The image of the ship appeared, sharp angles, obsidian plating, still, carrying the scars of its impossible victory at Varith. "That vessel," he said, "is the Aegis. It is not a warship in the way you think of warships. It is a culmination, a synthesis of every lesson humanity has learned from war. Our wars, your wars, the wars of every civilization that has scarred this galaxy." The Deleth leaned forward. "Explain." Kane's expression hardened. "Your fleets number in the thousands. You measure power by quantity, by attrition, by the number of ships you can throw into battle. We do not." He tapped a control on the table, and the hollow shifted. Images of Earth's history flickered, cities burning in firestorms, trenches filled with mud and bodies, mushroom clouds rising into black skies. The galaxy watched, many horrified. For thousands of years, humanity fought itself, Kayan continued. We waged wars that pushed our world to the brink of ruin, and from every war, We learned. We learned that numbers mean nothing when the weapons outpace the flesh. We learned that fear can break an army before the first shot is fired. And we learned that the longer a war drags on, the more it consumes, until nothing is left but ash. The room was silent, the images fading into the void. So we built something different. The Aegis is not designed to fight many battles. It is designed to end them before they begin, the Archeth hissed, outraged. Impossible! A ship cannot be both shield and sword, fortress and spear. Cain turned his gaze to them, calm and steady. It can, if it is not built in the way you build ships. The Aegis is grown as much as it is forged. Its armor is alive, its systems self-repairing. Its power source is not something you would understand yet. It is not a ship in your sense of the word. It is a statement. A statement. The word hung in the chamber like a thundercloud. You measure strength in fleets, Cain continued. We measure it in certainty. When the Aegis enters a system, there is no question who will win. That certainty is our weapon. It makes enemies hesitate before they dare attack. It forces them to weigh every decision against annihilation. That hesitation is often enough to prevent war at all. The Drakari growled, though there was a tremor in his voice now. And what if it is not enough? What if your enemies do not hesitate? Cain's answer was simple, chilling in its finality. Then one ship is enough. A heavy silence followed. Not a single delegate dared interrupt. They understood, perhaps for the first time, that humanity's restraint was not weakness. It was deliberate. The humans had built not a fleet to fight, endless wars, but a weapon to stop them cold. And yet, beneath the awe and terror, suspicion lingered. If humanity had truly created only one, then why reveal it now? Why risk showing their hand when the galaxy might unite against them out of fear? Cain seemed to sense the question because his final words carried a weight that pressed down on every chest. Understand this. The Aegis exists not to conquer, but to ensure peace. Humanity does not seek empires. But should war come to us, should war come to those we protect, one ship will be enough to end it. The chamber sat frozen, the truth reverberating in their minds. They had demanded answers, and humanity had given them one. Not with boasting, not with threats, but with a calm certainty that made the blood of every species run cold. The story of the Aegis spread faster than hyperspace relays could officially transmit. It was carried by traders, by smugglers, by frightened soldiers who had witnessed the impossible firsthand. Before the Council could even agree on what to do, the galaxy already knew. Humanity had sent one ship into battle, and that ship had destroyed the Croth Dominion's armada without taking a single scratch. The psychological impact was immediate. On frontier worlds where panic had once run rampant, civilians whispered the name Aegis like a prayer. Colonies that had prepared for evacuation began to unpack, suddenly daring to believe in survival. Merchants who had suspended their trade routes reopened them, certain that no Croth fleet would dare attack a convoy flying near Terran space. But in the halls of power, the mood was far darker. The Croth Dominion, so used to being feared, went silent. Their border fleets withdrew with uncharacteristic caution, abandoning conquests they had fought for decades to secure. For a species that thrived on intimidation, the loss at Varith was more than defeat. It was humiliation. Worse, it was a reminder that there was now an enemy they could not bully, an opponent they could not overwhelm. Their scouts reported again and again. The human ship still patrolled, unchallenged, unafraid. And though no more Terran vessels had appeared, the Dominion's war machine faltered. For if one ship existed, surely there were others. The Council, too, wrestled with the revelation. Meetings stretched into endless sessions, filled with arguments that bordered on hysteria. Some called for an alliance with Earth, to bind the humans in treaties before fear turned to hostility. Others demanded preemptive strikes, insisting that humanity could not be allowed to wield such power unchecked. Yet in every debate, one truth strangled all momentum. No one dared test the aegis. Even the most hawkish delegates fell silent when the question was asked aloud. What if they have more? Ambassador Kane never answered that question directly. Whenever pressed, he would only give the same measured smile and repeat the same phrase. One ship was enough. The words drove paranoia like a knife. Did he mean humanity had built only one because that was all they needed? Or did he mean one was all they chose to reveal? The ambiguity was deliberate, and it worked. Soon, old rivalries among the council began to cool. Species that had been locked in border disputes for centuries quietly withdrew their fleets. Pirates who once prowled the trade routes found their clients suddenly uninterested in provoking trouble. Even the black market slowed, whispers spreading. That humanity's shadow touched every star lane. Fear became stability, and stability, for the first time in living memory, began to resemble peace. Yet peace born from fear is never comfortable. Delegates lay awake in their chambers, haunted by visions of the aegis turning its guns on their worlds. Admirals revised their doctrines, not to defeat humanity, but to ensure their fleets survived long enough to retreat if the unthinkable happened. Entire empires recalculated their policies, balancing ambition against the new reality that war could end in a single hour if the humans so willed it. And through it all, Earth remained quiet. The aegis did not parade through systems, nor did humanity boast of conquest. The ship drifted on the edges of battle zones, a silent guardian that spoke louder through its inaction than it had through its victory. It was restraint that terrified the galaxy most, for if humanity had chosen to unleash such a weapon once, what stayed their hand from doing so again? On Vayrith, the people built monuments not to their own armies, but to the human ship that had saved them. Across the galaxy, songs, stories, even prayers began to include its name. To the common folk, it was not a weapon but a miracle. To the leaders, it was a reminder that a single shadow could control the stars. In time, the war with the Croth Dominion slowed to a crawl. Their aggression blunted, their fleets hesitant, their empire shrinking under the weight of uncertainty. And all of it, every shift in galactic power, traced back to one decision. Earth had sent one ship. The galaxy would never forget that lesson, because in the end, the humans had not needed numbers. They had not needed to prove themselves with fleets or armies. What they proved instead was far more dangerous. That restraint, coupled with overwhelming force, was more terrifying than conquest. And so the aegis became a symbol, not of war, but of the new balance. The galaxy did not fear humanity for their strength alone. They feared them for their silence, their calm, their refusal to boast. For they knew, deep down, that if the humans ever chose otherwise, if they ever truly unleashed themselves, then one ship would not be the beginning. It would be the end.